The chandelier above the Ashworth ballroom held 400 candles, and every one of them trembled when the doors opened to let in the October wind. Eleanor Graves felt the draft reach her across 40 feet of polished floor, cutting through the thin silk of her borrowed gown. She pressed closer to the marble column she had been using as a shield for the past quarter hour. "He is coming this way," said Harriet Poole, gripping Eleanor's elbow with fingers that meant business. Harriet was Eleanor's employer's sister, her one true ally in this glittering purgatory, and her talent for surveillance was unmatched. "Mr. Beckford, 10 paces. Move in with the confidence of a man who believes the word no is a suggestion." Eleanor did not turn to look. She did not need to. She had spent the last 3 weeks cataloging Mr. Philip Beckford's patterns the way she cataloged everything else, with the professional precision of a woman who had spent 6 years managing the private library of Lady Ashworth. She knew Beckford had spoken to Lady Ashworth that afternoon. She knew what had been discussed. Her employer had told her with genuine regret. Beckford had made an offer for Eleanor's hand. Lady Ashworth, who owed Beckford money, had agreed to announce the match tonight, at the Masquerade, in front of 300 witnesses. Eleanor was not a daughter being given away. She was a debt being settled. "He is going to do it publicly," Eleanor said. The words tasted like copper. "If he declares it here, in front of everyone, refusing him becomes refusing Lady Ashworth. I lose my position, my room, my references, everything." "Then we leave," Harriet said. "The doors are watched." "He had his man stationed there an hour ago." Eleanor had noticed. She always noticed. It was the thing about her that people found useful and never rewarded. Beckford's voice carried over the string quartet, that particular tone of a man accustomed to owning rooms. He was greeting someone near the refreshment table, 8 paces now. Maybe 6. Eleanor's gaze swept the ballroom with the rapid efficiency she used to scan damaged manuscripts for salvageable pages. Exits blocked. Harriet unable to create sufficient distraction. No allies of rank present. And then her attention caught on a man standing alone near the far window, half turned from the crowd, his mask darker than anyone else's. Not the fashionable gilt and feathered confections the other guests wore, but something older, carved from what looked like black wood, covering everything above his mouth. He stood with the stillness of furniture. No one approached him, though the space around him was not empty by accident. People drifted away from his radius the way leaves circle but never touch the center of a pond. Beckford's hand landed on her shoulder. She felt the weight of it through her gown. "Miss Graves, I believe Lady Ashworth has good news for us both this evening." Eleanor did not think. She had spent 29 years thinking, and it had brought her to a ballroom where she was about to be announced as a settlement of accounts. She moved. She crossed the 12 feet to the stranger at the window, put her gloved hand against his chest. Cold, even through wool and silk and cotton. Cold the way stone is cold. And she kissed him. His lips were ice, not the cool of a man who had been standing near a window. Something deeper, older, as if warmth had left him so long ago. It had forgotten the address. The room behind her went silent in a wave, the quartet faltering, conversations dying outward like ripples in reverse. She smelled winter on him. Not cologne, not tobacco, not anything she could name. Just the clean, absolute absence of warmth, the way January smells in an empty church. He did not pull away. That was the first thing she registered. The second was that he did not grab her. His hands remained at his sides for 1 heartbeat, 2, and then, slowly, as if he were remembering how, one hand came up and rested against the small of her back. Not pulling, steadying. The way you hold a lantern in a dark room, not to own the light but to see by it. She broke the kiss. His eyes behind the dark mask were gray, and they watched her with an attention so focused it felt architectural, as if he were constructing something from the details of her face. "Forgive me," she said, and her voice came out steadier than she had any right to expect. "I needed you to be someone I had chosen." Behind her, Beckford had stopped. She could hear his breathing, thick with outrage. The silence of 300 guests pressed against her back like a wall. The stranger said nothing. He looked past her, at Beckford, and whatever Beckford saw in that gaze made him take one step backward. Then another. Eleanor turned and walked into the crowd. Harriet materialized at her side like a woman who had been waiting in the wings of a theater. "That," Harriet said, "was either the bravest or the most catastrophically foolish thing I have ever witnessed." "Who was that man?" "I have no idea," Eleanor said. Her lips were still cold. The stranger watched her disappear into the shifting masks and silk. He had not moved. Around him, the candles in the chandelier, all 400, burned perfectly still, as if the air itself had decided to hold its breath. She learned his name 2 days later, when a card arrived at Lady Ashworth's house. Heavy cream stock, the handwriting precise but unhurried. Lord Alastair Vane, Thornfield Hall, requesting the pleasure of Miss Graves's company to discuss a matter of private library restoration. The card smelled of nothing at all. No ink, no paper mill, no fingers, nothing. "Lord Vane," Harriet repeated, sitting across the kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold. "Thornfield Hall. That is the estate north of the river, the one nobody visits. Eleanor, that house has been closed for years. Apparently it has a library in need of cataloging," Eleanor said. She turned the card over. Blank. "You kiss the man. You have never kissed anyone. You have strong opinions about the organizational failures of the Bodleian and no patience for small talk. You kissed a complete stranger at a masquerade because Philip Beckford decided to buy you like a horse at auction. And now the stranger wants to hire you." Harriet set down her tea. "This is either Providence or a Gothic novel, and I am not sure which is worse." Eleanor went to Thornfield Hall because she had no choice. Lady Ashworth, humiliated by the scene at the masquerade, had dismissed her that morning. No references, no final wages. 6 years of work dissolved in one sentence delivered through a closed door. The card from Lord Vane was the only offer she had. Thornfield Hall stood at the end of a drive lined with yew trees so old their branches had grown together overhead, forming a tunnel that smelled of damp earth and something faintly resinous. The house itself was large, dark, and indifferent to the opinions of visitors. Eleanor liked it immediately. He met her in the entrance hall without his mask. His face was what the mask had suggested, angular, weathered, composed of decisions rather than softness. A scar ran along his jaw, thin and old. His eyes were the same gray she remembered. They carried the same quality of focused attention, as though everything else in his field of vision was merely context for whatever he was looking at directly. "Miss Graves," he said. His voice was low, unhurried, the kind of voice that had never needed to be raised. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for the position," she said. "I should tell you directly. I kissed you as a stratagem, not an invitation. I hope that is understood." Something moved at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. The memory of a smile, perhaps, or the place where smiles had once been kept. "It is understood," he said. "The library is this way." The library at Thornfield Hall was a catastrophe. 3 rooms connected by archways, floor to ceiling. Books stacked on every surface, including the floor. Manuscripts mixed with printed volumes. Folios shelved spine inward. A 15th century herbal pressed beneath a stack of railway timetables from decades past. Eleanor stood in the doorway and felt her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with the man beside her, and everything to do with the chaos before her. "How long has it been like this?" she said. "Longer than you would believe," Lord Vane said. She began the next morning. He gave her rooms on the second floor. Warm, clean, with a view of the U Drive and a fireplace that someone had already lit. She catalogued. She sorted. She built systems. And she began to notice things. He never ate in her presence. The kitchen was well stocked, maintained by a capable housekeeper named Mr. Pemberton, a compact, silver-haired man with the bearing of a retired sergeant major, and the conversational style of someone who had long ago stopped being impressed by anything. "His lordship keeps his own hours," Pemberton said when Eleanor asked about the household schedule. "Has done since before I arrived. And I arrived a long time ago, Miss Graves. A very long time ago." "How long?" Eleanor said. Pemberton considered this. "Long enough to know that when his lordship hires a librarian, it is not entirely about the books." She filed this away. She filed everything away. Lord Vane did not breathe. She noticed this on the fourth day, when they stood together examining a water-damaged manuscript, and she realized his chest had not moved once in 3 minutes. She had counted. She was a cataloger. She counted things. He cast no shadow when the light hit him from certain angles. His skin was cold even through his gloves. She discovered this when he handed her a volume and their fingers touched. The flowers in the library had been dead when she arrived, began slowly blooming, as if the room itself were responding to some change in temperature or atmosphere she could not measure. She did not name what she was noticing. She organized the observations the way she organized everything, by category, by frequency, by weight of evidence. And she kept working. On the 6th day, Beckford came. Eleanor was in the second library room sorting folios by date, when Pemberton appeared in the doorway with an expression she had not seen on his face before. It took her a moment to identify it. Contempt. "A Mr. Beckford is in the entrance hall," Pemberton said. "He says he has business with you. I told him you were engaged. He told me he did not take instructions from servants. I told him I have been taking instructions from precisely one person for longer than his family has had a surname, and that person is not him." Pemberton straightened his cuffs. "He is still in the entrance hall." Eleanor set down the folio. Her hands were steady, though something in her stomach had turned to ice. She went downstairs. Beckford stood in the entrance hall like a man inspecting property he intended to purchase. His smile when he saw her was the smile of someone who had found a misplaced belonging. "Miss Graves," he said, "I have been looking for you. Lady Ashworth was concerned when you disappeared. She asked me to find you." "Lady Ashworth dismissed me," Eleanor said. She was not concerned. She was relieved. "The arrangement still stands," Beckford said. His voice carried the pleasant steadiness of a man discussing terms of sale. "Lady Ashworth's debts are my debts now, and you are part of the settlement, Miss Graves. Your little performance at the masquerade was embarrassing, but it does not change the contract." "There is no contract," Eleanor said. "I am employed here. I am not available for purchase." Beckford looked around the entrance hall, taking in the age of the house, the silence, the quality of the stone, calculating. "Lord Vane," he said, "the recluse. I have made inquiries. No one in London has seen him in society for decades. No connections, no allies, no family. Whatever protection you think this house offers you, Miss Graves, It is an illusion. I will petition the magistrate. I have Lady Ashworth's signature on a document. You will find that paper holds up rather well in these situations." He left. Eleanor stood in the entrance hall and breathed. The stone floor was cold beneath her shoes, and the house was so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. "He does not have a valid document," said Lord Vane's voice from behind her. She turned. He was standing at the top of the stairs, though she had not heard him approach, had not heard a footstep, a breath, a creak of wood. He stood the way old houses stand, not quite straight, not yet falling, every surface carrying the memory of weight. "He may not need one," Eleanor said. "A man with money and a magistrate's ear can manufacture validity. I have seen it done." "So have I," Lord Vane said. And the way he said it, with the weariness of someone who had watched that particular mechanism operate not once or twice, but across a span of time that defied counting, made her look at him more carefully than she ever had before. She did not ask. Not yet. Beckford's second strike came 9 days later, delivered not in person but through the local post. A letter addressed to Eleanor from the parish registrar, informing her that Mr. Philip Beckford had submitted documentation asserting a pre-existing betrothal agreement, that if she did not present herself to contest the claim within 14 days, the agreement would be entered into the parish record as valid. "He fabricated a betrothal document," Eleanor said, standing in the library with the letter in her hand. Her voice was level. Underneath, something was shaking. Harriet, who had arrived for a visit that morning and shown no intention of leaving, read over her shoulder. "The nerve of this man. He has the nerve and the resources, Eleanor, and that is a dangerous combination." "The document requires 2 witnesses," Eleanor said. "I need to know who signed. If I can prove they were paid or coerced, the claim collapses." "How?" Harriet said. "By being a librarian," Eleanor said. "I find things. It is what I do." Lord Vane offered resources, quietly, without fanfare. His solicitor, his name, his connections. Eleanor accepted the solicitor, but refused the rest. "If I defeat Beckford using your authority," she said, "he will say I traded one owner for another. I need to defeat him with evidence." Lord Vane looked at her for a long moment. "Then I will stand beside you," he said. "Not in front." It was the first time she thought she might be falling for him. Not for his face, his house, his quiet strength, for the restraint, for the effort it cost a man who could clearly move mountains to stand still and let her lift the stones herself. The investigation took days. Eleanor wrote letters. She cross-referenced signatures. She sent Harriet to London with specific instructions and a list of questions. And in the evenings she worked in the library, and Lord Vane sat in the armchair near the window and read. The silence between them grew into something warm and inhabited, like a room that has been empty too long and is finally remembering what furniture feels like. "You do not eat," she said one evening, not looking up from her work. Silence. Then, "No." "You do not breathe unless you are about to speak." A longer silence. "That is observant." "I am a cataloger," she said. "I notice patterns. I have been noticing yours since the masquerade. Your lips were cold when I kissed you. Not cool. Cold. The kind of cold that has no origin in weather." She looked up. He was watching her with an expression she could not catalogue, something between fear and hope, balanced on an edge so fine it could fall either way. "I am not going to ask you tonight," she said, "but I want you to know that I have noticed and that I am still here." He said nothing. But the flowers on the desk, dried chrysanthemums she had put there 3 days ago for color, were blooming. She watched a petal unfurl in the lamplight, slow and impossible, and she went back to her work. Beckford's third strike shattered what remained of the quiet. Harriet returned from London with news. The 2 witnesses on the fabricated betrothal document were real people. But one of them was dead, and had been dead before the date on the document. The signature was forged. Eleanor had her evidence, but Beckford had not been idle. The same day Harriet returned, a notice appeared in the London Gazette, an announcement that Miss Eleanor Graves, formerly of Lady Ashworth's household, was residing unchaperoned in the home of Lord Alistair Vane, that her moral character was therefore subject to question. The announcement was unsigned but paid for. It did not need a signature. It needed only circulation. He is trying to destroy my reputation, so that even if the betrothal claim fails, no one will hire me, Eleanor said. She set the newspaper down on the library table. Her hands were shaking now, and she did not try to hide it. He wants to make sure you have nowhere to go except back to him, Harriet said, her voice tight with fury. The man is systematic. I will give him that and nothing else. Pemberton appeared in the doorway. His lordship asks if you will join him in the study. Lord Vane was standing by the window when she entered, the last light of the afternoon hitting him from behind. And she saw it. Saw what she had been cataloging in pieces for weeks, assembled now into a single, undeniable observation. He cast no shadow. The light passed through the space where his shadow should have been, and struck the wall behind him, uninterrupted, as if he were not there at all. Beckford has hired someone to come to Thornfield, Lord Vane said. A man from London, a journalist. He intends to publish a full accounting of your presence here. How do you know? Eleanor said. I heard him, Lord Vane said, dictating the letter to his secretary, from 4 miles away. The room went still. 4 miles, Eleanor said. I hear everything within a considerable radius, he said. I hear your heartbeat right now. It is faster than usual. It has been faster since you walked in and saw that I have no shadow. She sat down, not because her legs failed, because she needed to think, and she thought better when she was grounded. She pressed her palms flat against the arms of the chair and felt the wood, solid and real. Vampire, she said. Not a question. A catalogue entry. A fact filed in its proper place. Yes, he said. At the masquerade. I kissed a vampire. The Vampire King, if the old titles still carry weight, he said, and his voice held something she had never heard in it before. Shame, or the place where shame lives when it has been carried for centuries. I have not used that title in a very long time. There is no court, no kingdom, only the years. Eleanor was quiet for a long time. The clock on the mantel ticked. The coals shifted and sighed. These were human sounds, and she held on to them. I kissed you to escape a man who wanted to own me, she said, and I kissed the most powerful being in the room. The irony is not lost on me, he said. How long? She said. How many years? More than I should admit to someone I am hoping will stay. She looked at him. The scar on his jaw, the gray eyes, the careful stillness that she now understood was not reserve, but control. The effort of a being who could move faster than sight, hear heartbeats through walls, choosing instead to stand still and speak softly, and wait for her to come to him. I have a plan to defeat Beckford, she said. I need your help with one piece of it, not your power, your presence. Will you come with me to London? Yes, he said. Then we leave tomorrow. And Alistair, I am still here. It was the first time she had used his name. He closed his eyes, and the flowers on his desk, bare stems an hour ago, burst into bloom so suddenly that petals drifted to the floor like snow. Eleanor's plan was specific, grounded, and built on the one thing she trusted more than anything else: documentation. The fabricated betrothal required 2 witness signatures. One witness was dead before the signing date. She had the death certificate, obtained by Harriet. She had the parish record showing the date of the document. She had a letter from the dead man's solicitor confirming the signature was impossible. What she needed was a public venue, witnesses of social standing, and Beckford present to be confronted with evidence he could not explain away in private. The venue was a reception at the home of Lady Thornbury, a society figure who owed Lord Vane a favor so old even she had forgotten its origin. Lord Vane wrote one letter. The invitation arrived the next day. Eleanor had expected the plan to work cleanly. She had laid every piece in order. But when they arrived at Lady Thornbury's reception, Eleanor in the same borrowed gown from the masquerade, Lord Vane beside her in black, Harriet flanking like a woman spoiling for a fight, Beckford was already there, and he was not alone. He had brought Lady Ashworth. Lady Ashworth was weeping decoratively into a handkerchief, telling anyone who would listen that Eleanor had stolen from her household before fleeing to Lord Vane's estate. "Theft," Harriet said, her voice flat. "He has added theft to the accusations." Eleanor felt the floor tilt beneath her. This was new. This was not in her plan. The evidence she had gathered addressed the false betrothal. It said nothing about fabricated theft charges. Beckford had adapted. He had layered his attack so that even if one claim fell, the other would stand. "The death certificate," Eleanor said to Harriet. "It discredits the betrothal. But the theft charge, I have nothing prepared." "You have me," Lord Vane said quietly. "I said I did not want to win with your authority." "Not my authority," he said. "My testimony. I was at the masquerade. I saw Lady Ashworth's face when you crossed the room. She was not the face of a woman whose servant had robbed her. She was the face of a woman completing a transaction. Every person in this room who was at that ball saw the same thing." Eleanor looked at him. Then she looked at the room, the guests, the crystal, the chandelier. A different chandelier from the one at the masquerade, but the same world. The same machinery of reputation and power that had been used to crush her. "Together, then," she said. The confrontation happened in Lady Thornbury's drawing room, in front of 38 guests. Pemberton, who had appeared with the mysterious efficiency Eleanor had stopped questioning, positioned himself by the door, not guarding it, but making sure no one left before the evidence was heard. Eleanor addressed the room with the calm precision of a woman presenting a catalog. She produced the death certificate. She produced the parish record. She laid them side by side on Lady Thornbury's card table and explained, in clear and measured terms, that one of the witnesses to Mr. Beckford's betrothal document had been dead for 3 months before the document was supposedly signed. Beckford's face went white, then red, then carefully blank. "The woman is a thief and a liar," he said, his voice carrying the cold courtesy of a man who had always won through manners and money. "Lady Ashworth will confirm." "Lady Ashworth," said Harriet, stepping forward with the particular satisfaction of a woman who has been waiting for this moment, "signed a letter this morning retracting her accusation. I visited her before we came. It seems her memory improved considerably when I mentioned the death certificate. She would like it known that she was coerced." Harriet produced the letter. Her signature, her seal, Her own hand. I watched her write it. Lord Vane spoke only once. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. I was present at the Ashworth masquerade, he said. The room went quiet with a completeness that had nothing to do with volume and everything to do with the quality of silence he carried with him. I observed Mr. Beckford attempt to publicly claim Miss Graves as a settlement of debt, without her knowledge or consent. Miss Graves is not property. She is not a debt. She is a woman of exceptional competence and character, and she is under my protection. Not because she requires it, but because she has earned my respect, and I am honored to offer it. Beckford looked at Lord Vane. Whatever he saw, whatever everyone in that room saw when Lord Vane stopped being careful and simply let the weight of centuries show in his eyes, it was enough. Beckford took his coat from the footman. He walked to the door. Pemberton held it open for him with the expression of a man disposing of rubbish. "Goodbye, Mr. Beckford," Pemberton said. Just that. It was sufficient. The room exhaled. Lady Thornbury called for champagne. Harriet accepted a glass, with the air of a general accepting a salute. Eleanor stood in the middle of the drawing-room and felt something she had not felt in 6 years. Possibly longer. Possibly ever. The ground beneath her was solid, not because someone else was holding it in place, but because she had built it herself, beam by beam, document by document. And it held. Lord Vane stood beside her, not in front. "You were magnificent," he said. "I was terrified," she said. "The theft charge nearly broke the plan." But it did not. "No," she said, "it did not." They went home to Thornfield. Home. The word arrived in her mind without permission and settled there, warm and heavy, like a cat on a lap. Weeks passed. The library took shape under Eleanor's hands. Spines aligned. Manuscripts separated from printed volumes. The 15th century herbal given its own shelf, with a note card in Eleanor's precise handwriting. Pemberton kept the fires lit and the kitchen stocked and maintained his policy of being impressed by nothing except, occasionally, Eleanor's organizational systems, which he described as almost military. Harriet visited every fortnight, arriving with London gossip and leaving with the satisfied expression of a woman who has confirmed that the world is, in fact, proceeding according to her expectations. "He watches you when you are not looking," Harriet said one afternoon, sitting in the library with a cup of tea that was, for once, still warm. "I have observed it 11 times today. He watches you the way people look at fireplaces, not because there is anything to see, but because the warmth is there, and they cannot help turning toward it." "You are counting," Eleanor said. "I learned from the best," Harriet said. That evening, Eleanor found Lord Vane in the study. The fire was low. The room smelled of old wood and the particular dustless silence that she had come to associate with him. The absence of small human sounds. The careful architecture of a life lived among mortals by someone who was not one. "At the masquerade," she said, "when I kissed you, what happened?" He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rougher than usual, as if the words were being pulled from a depth that rarely saw light. "I have been alive for a very long time," he said. "And in that time I have been touched by many people, servants who dress me, tailors who measure me, hands extended in greeting. None of it has ever been warm, not because the touch lacked heat, but because it lacked intention, selection. No one has ever crossed a room, chosen me from a crowd, and touched me because I was the person they wanted to reach. You were the first. in all those centuries. The first. I did not choose you, Eleanor said gently. I chose the nearest stranger. I know, he said. And yet, something in me recognized something in you. The kiss. I cannot explain this in terms that make rational sense. And you are the most rational woman I have ever met. So I hesitate. But the kiss woke something. A capacity I thought had atrophied centuries ago. The capacity to want a specific person. Not warmth in general. Not companionship in the abstract. You. Your voice. Your precision. Your hands sorting papers. Your heartbeat when you are concentrating, which slows to exactly 52 beats per minute. You. Eleanor felt the warmth rise from her chest to her face. She did not look away. I will grow old, she said. Yes, he said, and you will not. There are things I have not told you yet, he said. Possibilities, but not tonight. Tonight, I am asking you something simpler. Will you stay? I have been staying, she said. I mean, will you stay knowing what I am? Knowing the cold, the years, the strangeness of it. Knowing that I hear your heartbeat in every room of this house, and it is the only sound that matters to me. She crossed the room. She put her hand on his chest. Cold, still, no heartbeat beneath her palm. She had kissed him once before, in desperation, using him as a shield. This time she kissed him in the full light of the study, with the fire dying and the flowers on his desk blooming impossibly in the dark. It was not evasion. It was arrival. His lips were still cold. But the hand that came up to rest against the small of her back was steady and gentle, present in a way that suggested migrations traced backward to a single room resolving into a single point of contact. She pulled back. I am still here, she said. He smiled. A real smile, not the memory of one. It changed his entire face, broke the angles, softened the scar, made him look for just a moment like a man who had forgotten he was ancient and simply remembered he was alive. On a Tuesday in November, Eleanor finished cataloging the library. Every volume in its place, every manuscript dated and shelved, every folio aligned. She stood in the doorway of the third room and looked at the work of her hands. She felt the satisfaction that only comes from taking chaos and giving it order. Pemberton appeared with tea. He surveyed the library with the eye of a man who has seen empires rise and fall and finds a well-organized bookshelf more impressive than either. Very good, Miss Graves, he said. His lordship will be pleased. Is he ever not pleased, Pemberton? Once, Pemberton said. In 1743, it passed. She laughed. The sound filled the library. The first laugh that room had heard in years, possibly decades, warm and unguarded, the laugh of a woman who has remembered she is allowed to. Lord Vane found her there an hour later, sitting in the armchair by the window, reading the 15th century herbal she had rescued from beneath the railway timetables. The afternoon light came through the glass and caught the dust motes drifting in the air. And for a moment, they looked like something else. Tiny golden things suspended, neither rising nor falling, held in place by nothing visible. The library is finished, she said. Then I shall have to find another reason to keep you, he said from the doorway. She looked up at him. The scar, the gray eyes, the careful stillness that she now understood was not coldness but devotion held in check. The body of a man who could cross a room faster than sight, choosing instead to stand in a doorway and wait for her to look up. You already have one, she said. He sat down across from her. The flowers on the desk between them were blooming again, though she had not replaced them. They always bloomed now. The whole house was warmer than it had been when she arrived, as if Thornfield itself had adjusted to her presence, as if the stones had remembered what it felt like to have someone inside them who intended to stay. Outside, the yew trees swayed in a wind she could not hear, and the last light of November caught the window pane and held there, warm, improbable, persistent. The way a kiss from a stranger at a masquerade can hold in the memory of a man who has lived long enough to forget everything, except the one moment that mattered.